to welcome you all to the launch of the FEX Sustainability and Clean Tech Investment Market, where of course our guest speaker is the 45th Vice President of the United States, Mr. Al Gore. To you first of all, the Chairman and the Founder of FEX, Mr. Brian Price.
When George C. Marshall spoke about his post-World War II Marshall Plan, he used this sentence: "The patient is sinking while the doctor deliberates." I believe this sentence can also be used to describe the global sustainability rhetoric. We intelligent people are experts at arguing semantics and debating costs and responsibility, and even better at making APEC-type declarations. It doesn't help that we in the first world are so far removed from the areas of the earth where distant peoples suffer the collateral damage of our economic prosperity. And yet the world relies on the proper judgment of those with the power, and most of you represent that group. Vice President Al Gore in the past has asked for solution tools. We at FEX believe that we can be part of that solution chain. Where we start from is an attempt to break from the traditional concept of the existence of environmental externalities. An example of what I mean by an environmental externality is air pollution. When one group of humans experience the negative impact of polluted air produced by others, yet this impact is not reflected in the cost structure. The mere existence of the economic term externality means that all stakeholders are not considered in an economic transaction, and they should be. A rehabilitation of thinking is required, where to the extent possible the concept of an externality should itself become extinct. The externality should become an input variable in the economic and social equation. Our vision at FEX is to help develop externality recognition in capital markets while also encouraging the development of the emerging sustainability sector. We've invested significantly in FEX Climate to bring the voluntary environmental markets a sense of an organised market structure for trading, registration, and tracking of environmental commodities such as carbon and water. We built a NASDAQ-type model for clean tech. This is our FEX SIM market. We're using traditional, well-structured and well-understood market structures. What could be more clear than the world's first clean tech stock market? The SIM market is not a trendy 6-month endeavour, but a 5 to 25-year business plan to develop a centralised, focused marketplace with the goal of bringing together brokers, corporate advisors, media, capital, entrepreneurs, traders, investors, to help both Australia and foreign companies source capital more efficiently and directly. The SIM market is a practical call to action to help facilitate and direct capital via recognised processes to the new emerging clean tech asset class. We challenge the capital markets to let no environmental externality be left unjustly unrecognised. Let's show the world that Australia can take a real leadership role in the sustainability markets, particularly with our regional Asian friends. Today for us represents a milestone in our journey because we're open for business. In 10 weeks, this building we currently occupy, known as the FEX Market Site, will be open for business to become the physical home of our markets. We've got some very, very young people with us here today, and we've got Octavia, and I think they like things being explained a little bit more simply. So, have you seen Lord of the Rings? Okay, Vice President Al Gore is like Gandalf, and not so old and grey, but very wise. And we've got to follow his example so we don't live in Mordor under the Lord's Sauron. Do you understand that? Okay. It's my pleasure now to introduce the Honourable Bob Carr, former Premier of New South Wales and world pioneer emissions trader. I'm honoured to welcome you to the podium. Enjoy the rest of the morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Vice President Al Gore, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in 2 years, I regret not being Premier. For the honour I would have had in welcoming as Premier Al Gore back to Australia, as I did on his earlier visit in May 2003. I tell you what, though, it would have been an even greater honour to have welcomed him as President Al Gore, and I think that's a view a majority of Australians have. And a majority of Australians agree that global warming is a hugely important problem The poll results show that 92% of Australians rate it that way. And it's because of the drought. And, Mr Vice President, even with El Nino receding, as it did this winter, the rains have not come. Climate change is beginning to affect that phenomenon, which, as you know, was always considered separate and independent of global warming. There was the impact of the IPCC report and of the Stern report, but there was the impact of a certain movie as well. And that fed into Australian concerns, shaped Australian concerns, led to that 92% poll reading. For Australia, this is a very serious problem. For Australians, there was a very uncomfortable moment in your movie, and that was the footage of you addressing an audience and saying, apart from the United States, there's only one other advanced country that hasn't ratified Kyoto. It's Australia. And no Australian saw that movie and didn't wince at that moment. There were no excuses for that inaction. We had, as Brian was kind enough to mention, the world's first carbon trading scheme here in New South Wales in January 2003. It could have been picked up and projected as a national scheme. Instead, we've wasted 5 years in getting to that point. New South Wales and Queensland tackled the problem in the face of monolithic farmer opposition of curbing the clearing of native vegetation, which is the only reason we can say we're going to reach those Kyoto targets. If Australian politicians at the national level had read this book that came out in 1992, they couldn't have been as tardy. Looking at it today, I think it's remarkable that there's no aspect of climate change, none of the things that were picked over by Stern or by the latest IPCC report, that weren't anticipated or discussed in your book, Earth in the Balance. And this man, my friends, has been engaged with this issue going back to his college days, when his professor, Roger Revelle, teaching him a course on population, was actually engaged in advocating, the first person to advocate it, a regular sample of carbon build-up in the atmosphere. That was Al Gore's introduction to the arguments about global environmental concerns. The first hearings of the United States Congress devoted to what was then a frightening and new idea that humans might be warming the planet were initiated and conducted by the man who it's my great honour to welcome here today in an appropriate setting, Brian, because market forces are going to be a large part of the answer to a problem Al Gore described in 1992 as capable of ending our civilization. It's the man, it's the moment, it's the location. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Vice President Al Gore.